everyone, how's it going? So BioWare wanted a Dragon Age Trilogy remaster, but EA wouldn't fund it. So for those who don't know, I am a huge fan of the Dragon Age franchise, but the Veilguard came out and it killed basically every interest I had in the franchise. Like, I'll replay Dragon Age Origins, that game can live on its own merits, but Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, because those have stories that continue forward, like Origins does as well, but not to the same extent that 2 did and Inquisition left off on. But yeah, I loved Origins so much, it's one of my favorite games of all time, that I ran out of save slots on the Xbox 360. I played every Origin story there was, and I ran out of save slots. And it was because I just finished, like, quitting World of Warcraft, so I needed something to fill that void. And when I started playing Dragon Age Origins, I was like, this is like a single player World of Warcraft, so it literally just filled that void. It was absolutely breathtaking to me. But Dragon Age, like Mass Effect, didn't have the best time with its most recent title was released. In October 2024, BioWare and Electronic Arts dropped Dragon Age Veilguard, which wasn't well received by audiences, much like 2017's Mass Effect Andromeda. The thing is, Mass Effect Andromeda did eventually sell, I think it sold like 5 million copies. It did sell very well, it just didn't get received well, and that was also due to the fact the game launched broken. I can say a lot of things about Dragon Age the Veilguard, but it launched in a fixed state. Let's just say that it didn't break, there weren't any game-breaking glitches, at least from my playthrough of the game. I got 100% all the achievements, everything. But Mass Effect Andromeda was utterly broken when it launched. It's still broken to this day, but it's not as broken when it launched. Think Cyberpunk 2077 or Assassin's Creed Unity level of broken. Like, it was really bad. I feel like if it launched in a fixed state, like it was actually playable from day one, it wouldn't have been as bad. But then again, it also was... The game was developed to be procedurally generated like No Man's Sky, but whereas No Man's Sky, they fixed the issues, they fixed all the problems, and technology has gone better to the point that that's actually a viable direction for game development. Back in 2017, it wasn't. It was the early stages of this tech, and when No Man's Sky launched, I believe in 2015, yeah, it was not. Granted, No Man's Sky did make a huge turnaround and come back. It's one of the best space exploration games of all time. But yeah, they tried to make it into a procedurally generated world with Mass Effect Andromeda. It failed dramatically. You could see that when you play the game. And then they just basically cobbled together what they could with the resources they had at hand, like with Dragon Age the Veilguard, which was supposed to be a live service game. If you play that game like a live service game, everything starts to click of why the game is the way that it is. But yeah, just putting that out there. However, Mass Effect has an advantage over Dragon Age is that the series boasts a trilogy remaster. That's right, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition was absolutely amazing. It included the entire franchise from the Commander Shepard trilogy, and it included an entire remaster of the first game, which was absolutely amazing. Like, if you played the original Mass Effect like I did, and you go to the Legendary Edition, it's like, oh my god, you can never go back to the original game. Not only from the visual updates of the game, but the overall gameplay is just, it's superior in every way. It's like you just can't go back. It's not like with Dead Space and Dead Space Remake, you can go back to the original game because the original game was so, like, perfect in its way that you can play that game and it plays like it plays as good as any modern game, even looks as good as any modern game, but you can play the remake as well and, you know, get just as good of an experience. So it's not like that. It definitely is something you just can't go back to the original for. When recently challenged on Dragon Age doesn't have a trilogy remaster or legendary edition, former BioWare executive more than 20 years Mark Darrah explained, "What's up, dude, with the money you have?" Mark Darrah departed BioWare in 2022 after spending 24 years rising through the ranks at the company. He saw that the most popular games of the era go out the doors at BioWare include Mass Effect, Quadrilogy, and every Dragon Age game bar last year's Veilguard. In a recent interview with Mr. Matty Plays, Darrah got into the topic of Dragon Age Trilogy Remaster, not remake, in the vein of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, explaining why it probably won't ever be a thing. I honestly think they should do. I don't think they will, but I think they should do a remaster of the first three. One of the things we pitched at one point pretty softly was to retroactively rebrand the first three games if they were a trilogy and called it Champions Trilogy. Maybe you can do that as the first step. You take those three games and maybe Veilguard, you shine them up and you re-release them, probably remaster, not remake, see what happens, and then maybe go from there. Darrah highlighted the stark similarities between the states of Mass Effect franchise and the Dragon Age franchise, but admitted that the latter is much harder to remaster than the former. Not only that, but there's no money coming from EA to support the idea. EA has said that this publicly, they're kind of against remasters. I don't know why. It's strange for publicly traded companies to seem against free money, but they seem to be against it, so that's part of it. The other problem is that Dragon Age is harder than Mass Effect to do. One of the earliest things was let Frostbite tools and then let a mod house that seems talented and just uplift them and pay them to do remakes. There were a lot of pitches around it. Is there a way we can bring Dragon Age Origins forward? The studio ruined their financials within themselves. I think to some degree EA stance was sure, go ahead, do it, but do it with money you have. We wouldn't do that with money that we already have because we're all doing other things. The full interview is here, and here's the interview. I watched it in completion. He does go into a lot of other detail, like how EA doesn't want to hire people to do these projects. They rather hire contract workers because hiring full-time people means that if something happens, you have to terminate them. We've been seeing that a lot in the tech industry right now. And Mark Darrah also goes into detail about if a studio only focuses on one game and that game flops, that studio is on the chopping block. EA is notorious for doing that, like what we saw with Dead Space. So if the studio doesn't do well and it doesn't have any other projects that it specializes in, it's basically gone. Whereas BioWare has multiple projects going on, so if Mass Effect is done or it doesn't do well, they can shift those people to Dragon Age, and we're seeing that right now. Dragon Age: The Veilguard was a huge failure. It was financially and critically, so they moved everyone up to the Mass Effect new game, which I think is called Mass Effect 4 at this point. I don't think they have an official name for it, but everyone's been calling it Mass Effect 4, and that's a do or doom for them right now. But you can watch the entire thing. He goes into Anthem and about game preservation, how he felt about Concord being a prime example of game preservation, how it shouldn't have been shut down, or at least it should have had some sort of preservation mode, so people who can research what went wrong with that game can experience it. And that's absolutely true. As much as Concord was one of the biggest failures in entertainment history, some sort of playable version would have been nice for people to look at and say, okay, this is what went wrong and this is what we can do right for the game. Like a scientist, they go into detail about this in an interview. It's an hour long, but it's extremely informative. I highly recommend you go watch it. I'll leave it linked below, but yeah, he goes into detail about that and why Dragon Age he also goes into detail that Dragon Age also doesn't have the same appeal as Mass Effect, which I can 100% see. Sci-fi is a bigger audience grabber than dark fantasy. As much as people like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, it doesn't have the same appeal as sci-fi in video games. Look at Star Wars. It is kind of a fact. And Dragon Age, as much as I love that franchise, it's not going to grab as much audience as Mass Effect would. On top of it, the games play so radically different. When you go from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 3, they essentially do play the same. They're third-person shooters at their core, but Dragon Age Origins to Dragon Age 2 and even Dragon Age Inquisition have such radically different playstyles. It's like what Mark Darrah said, you would need to have a mod house come in and basically overhaul a lot of stuff. There are a lot of passionate fans that have created mods for Dragon Age Origins 2 and Inquisition, and I think that would have been the right call, but EA is very money hungry, and unless they have some sort of gold mine. He also goes into live services and states that every big company looks at it as a business. They would love to have rotating live services. If one fails, they'll just have another one out, but that would be the kill shot for the gaming industry. He also goes into detail about the indie companies that are making it big, like with Balacho and Expedition 33. I still have to finish that game. It's just been like, I don't know if I want to stream it and play it like that or if I want to play it on my own, but either way, as much as those companies have made money, when you look into the spreadsheet of everything when it comes to marketing, distribution, all that stuff, that money quickly goes away when you go into your next project. Like, video games are they don't, not every video game makes Madden and FIFA, NBA levels of money. In fact, there was a story that recently came out that I might do a video on about how someone spent $32,000 on NBA 2K in about 5 months, 6 months, and honestly, I believe it, because you would not believe how many people do not keep track of their finances. Like, they teach you a lot of stuff in Western schools, but interest rates, compound interest, taxes, keeping track of your finances, credit score, you'll be surprised a lot of people don't do that. I keep track of every penny I spend. I check every bank account I have from every bank every day to make sure of all of that stuff. But yeah, it seems that we will never get a Dragon Age trilogy, especially considering that the Veilguard was such a financial failure. I hate, like, there are people who venomously defend that game. Even Mark Darrah in his video, in the video when Mr. Matty plays, kind of defends the game, but he also goes into detail about how it was just a sinking ship. And it's kind of, you read between the lines, like, he doesn't want to speak ill of it because it was one of his projects, and also, like, he has a strong connection with the people who worked on that game. I know there was a lot of, like, controversy with what he stated about being mean to developers, but I understood where he was coming from with that. When you've worked with people for over 20 years, you've essentially developed a relationship with them. You've probably gone to birthday parties, you probably met their family. Like, when you develop that personal bond with someone, it's a lot different than someone who just played their game and said it sucked. And that's kind of, I understand where he was coming from. I'm playing play devil's advocate, but at the same time, the customer is right. If the customer doesn't like your game or doesn't like your product, they'll go elsewhere, and you lose out on that money, and your business will fail without enough customers. It's like what happened with the Veilguard. Like, it killed the franchise. Almost every person I've only seen like a couple of people who liked that game, and even then, the points they brought up were just, I don't know, weird in a lot of ways. That's just my opinion. I hated the Veilguard, and it was a franchise killer. Tosh for Dragon Age was like Ava for Borderlands. Like, Borderlands 2 is such a fantastic game, but I would say after Borderlands 3, the pre-sequel, then Borderlands 3, the Borderlands movie, Tales from the Borderlands 2, all of which were, like, Borderlands 3 was mediocre, received averagely. Like, a lot of people did like the gameplay. I liked the gameplay for it, but it was just the same of Borderlands 2. But yeah, Ava was basically the Tosh of the Borderlands franchise. That's kind of how it's going right now. We'll see how Borderlands 4 does. Maybe it won't suffer the same fate as Veilguard, but I feel like the Dragon Age franchise at this point is dead and buried. Like, getting EA, as corporate as they are, to say, hey, yeah, let's invest into this company, and then, you know, failure will come up. But that's what I have for it. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I think the best thing we can do is hope modders just create an overhaul of this game and just say, you know what, here it is. If you want to play it, it's on Steam, install the mod, there you go. But I just don't think EA is going to do it, and Mark Darrah agrees. So, again, watch the interview. Highly recommend it. It's very informative, but that's it from me. Like, sub, and share if you want to. If not, dislike, and that's it from me. Have a good day.